Welcome everyone. It's a nice day outside for a new session of Connect University. I'm Alex, but as you might know, I'm simply here to warm things up for our speakers on today's session on the strengthened code of practice on disinformation. For those of you that come from the outside, we here at Connect University began in 2015 with the project, which is the knowledge sharing flagship of DigiConnect, which aims to update both us, you staff, and you, the audience, on the latest digital trends, as well as the most important digital policies. The scope of our sessions in general is to put at the same table institutions, industry, and academia, trying to learn from one another, identify opportunities and threats to shaping digital policy. For those of you who are not yet connected via Slido, we invite you to do so that you might ask questions, and then we will make sure that they make their way towards the speakers. For those of you who cannot stay until the end, the recording of the session will be available on the Digital EU channel in 1 or 2 days. And for those of you who are curious about future sessions, we invite everyone to join Futurium. And for example, we have in 1 week a session on the digital decade 2030, and you have more information there. Now then, for the session of today, we have with us quite a few speakers, so stay with us. I'll first begin with Christina Stump, Head of Unit here in the Commission at Connective4, together with Alberto Ravacin, the Deputy Head of Unit in E4. Next, we have Anya Grobovac. She is Project Manager at the Central European Digital Media Observatory. Next, Stefan Münges, the Coordinator at the German-Austrian Digital Media Observatory. Next, we have Clement Wolf, the Head of Information of Quality Policy at Google. Luca Nicotra, the Campaign Director at Avast. Paula Gori, Coordinator at the European University Institute. And Carlos Hernandez Echevarria, the Head of Public Policy and Institutional Development at Maldita.es. Now, Alberto, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Alex, for introducing this Connect University session. And so this session is organized by the unit Media Convergence and Social Media here in DigiConnect. And the unit is responsible for the main action of the European Commission strategy to tackle disinformation. I am referring in particular to the Code of Practice on Disinformation and to the European Digital Media Observatory. These are the two pillars of the strategy, and this is what you will hear about today at this session. Let me say that there is a common approach, a common characteristic to these two pillars, and is the multi-stakeholder approach that has been used to design and implement them. So you will hear from the actors, the main actors of these efforts, why they are endeavoring this journey, which is quite challenging, and you will understand also this multi-stakeholder approach. Let me say that both the Code of Practice and the European Digital Media Observatory are constructed in a way to provide effective action to limit the impact of disinformation, but at the same time, at the core of this action, there is the protection of fundamental principles like freedom of expression. So, without further ado, let me introduce the first speaker of this session, Christina Stump, which is the head of the unit, that will give you an introduction to the code and to the role of the European Commission on this process. Christina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Good morning, everybody. It is my great pleasure to present you here at Connect University the new Code of Practice on Disinformation from the perspective of the European Commission. Before I jump into the details, let us ask ourselves, what is the Code of Practice on Disinformation? The Code of Practice is, in short, an industry code fostered by the European Commission with the participation of a diverse signatory base. From that, you see several representatives today, with a broad set of measures to limit the spread of disinformation. The Code of Practice is also quite a revolutionary tool and the first of this kind worldwide. Why is this complex instrument needed? In short, because disinformation as such is most often not illegal, but can be very harmful, as we have already seen regarding COVID, regarding Ukraine, and so on. So removal as such is not the main answer to fight disinformation, and all measures to fight disinformation have to be in line with the freedom of expression. To be honest, we did not find a magic bullet or something like that in the Code of Practice to fight disinformation, but the Code of Practice comes up with a diverse set of tools that altogether can be efficient in fighting disinformation. And as already stressed also by Alberto, it is also the very diverse set of stakeholders that makes this code strong. Let me then go to my presentation that should also help you to visualize the situation. So it's also important to stress that the code that we have today is not the first Code of Practice on Disinformation. There was already a code in place in 2018, a first code, and the Commission has assessed this 2 years after its operation and has concluded that it has some shortcomings and gaps. And that's why in May 2021, it came up with the guidance on how the signatories should strengthen the code for it to become a better instrument to fight disinformation. In June 21, the revision started with an already diverse new signatory base. From that, you will hear from the representatives and their perspectives today. And in June last year, we had the new strengthened code signed by the signatories. What is the quick difference between the old and the new code? So the new code has more than doubled the signatory base, and it's also a much more diverse one. I will get to that in a moment. Then it has also doubled the number of commitments from industry. And it's not only doubling the commitments, but also accompanying the implementation of the commitments by specific industry-led measures to make it very concrete. Then the last very big difference is the move from self-regulation to a co-regulation for very large online platforms, which means basically that for these players, there is also a regulatory framework behind. Then, very quickly, what were the main expectations from the Commission side for the Code of Practice, for the new Code of Practice? As already stressed, a broader and more diverse signatory base, because the previous code was more a code for the big platforms, while, as you will see in a moment, the new code is really a multi-stakeholder approach. Then another very important goal for the Commission was the efficient implementation of the code in all member states and languages, because what we have seen regarding the previous code is that while measures, for example, in English language or in bigger language, may have been stronger, in smaller languages and member states, we did not see similar measures put in place by online platforms. And of course, from the perspective of the European Commission, the implementation of the code needs to be efficient in the entire EU. Also, another very important goal is to have more transparency, to have a robust monitoring, and to make sure that the code is flexible and future-proof. Let me get to the diverse signatory base. So as you see here on these slides, it is very important, of course, that we have major online platforms on board: Google, Meta, Microsoft, TikTok. This is also very important because the information is obviously spreading very virally on these big platforms. At the same time, it is also important that smaller and specialized online platforms are also on board, because obviously this information is also present there, so measures are needed also from them. Then we have also various players from the advertising industry on board, which is important because, as I will get into that in a moment, the code has an important set of measures to demonetize this information, so to cut the financial incentives, and here the participation of the advertising industry is of key importance. We also have another very important community on board for the code, fact checkers, because here again, fact-checking is one of the very efficient measures of the code, and it was key that the fact-checkers also bring their practical experience and perspective to the drafting of the code's measures on this. We have also civil society and research organizations on board, and again here, this is key to ensure that the code's measures also respond to the needs of this, and also that civil society was represented in the drafting process. Last but not least, also various players offering technological solutions have contributed, who can offer very efficient instruments from the technological side to combat disinformation. In view of the short time, what I will do is to give you a very general overview, to give you a flavor in what areas the code as commitments, and in any event, after my presentation, you will have the perspective and more insight from the different contributors to the code. So, as already mentioned, one important area of the code is the monetization. So this means that the signatories made commitments to avoid advertising placed next to disinformation. So basically, this helps to cut the financial incentives for disinformation, because obviously, based on the example, for example, on Ukraine, certainly it is important to avoid that players who are politically motivated to spread disinformation do not get financial contributions from these. And of course, it's also very important that players that purely motivated by making money on disinformation can also not do so. Then another important area of the code for political opinion building is transparent political advertising. Here, the signatories made commitments to make sure that users can clearly recognize political advertising, for example, through efficient labeling, and to have information about the advertisers. Reducing manipulative behavior is also a key area of the code. What does it mean? This means fighting behavior such as, for example, the use of fake accounts or bots to spread disinformation, the use of malicious deepfakes and similar technologies. So here the companies also made commitments to fight this. User empowerment is an important and quite new chapter of the code. So as you certainly understand, it is key that users are equipped with better tools to be able to recognize disinformation, also to flag disinformation, and also be supported by media literacy measures in order to allow them to navigate better in the online environment. As already mentioned, fact-checking is also a key area of the code, and here let me stress that it was key to ensure fact-checking coverage across the EU, and also to make sure that fact-checkers can receive fair financial contributions to support their important work. Last but not least, data access for research is also a key area of the code in order to make sure that researchers can provide more insight into the phenomenon of disinformation. So these are the areas where we have measures and commitments under the code. And the important thing was, as already mentioned, that all these measures and commitments have been crafted together with the different signatories. So online platforms, from those you will hear a moment, but fact checkers, also representatives from the advertising industry, civil society, to make sure that really these measures and these commitments are strong and can also work in practice. Last, let me give you a very quick overview about the horizontal areas of the code that also give an insight into the code's functioning. I mentioned transparency before as a key area. So here, the signatory is committed to set up a transparency center where they will display on a publicly accessible website all the implementation measures and the data related to the code. So this is quite a novelty that will be launched soon. Also, the code comes with a permanent task force. So this means that the code signatories have not stopped working, and the next speakers can certainly confirm that. The signatory base is basically working together on a daily basis to implement the code and to make sure that it is efficient. Last but not least, I also mentioned monitoring as important. So obviously it needs to be clear whether the signatories are living up to their commitments, and this happens through a robust monitoring framework where very soon, by the end of the month, these signatories will need to provide data regarding the implementation. I will stop here because there are very interesting speakers after me who can basically give their perspective, also how the drafting process was, how they see it, or what they see as important measures under the code. To conclude, let me just say that we have here very strong commitments and measures. We have a very strong signatory base, and we have also a strong co-regulatory framework with the Digital Services Act that can make sure that the code is efficiently implemented. So with that, we have all the ingredients in place that we need for a strong toolbox for disinformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina, for your presentation and for providing also the point of view of the European Commission. Now I will give the floor to the signatories of the code, to a representative set of those. And I will start from Clement Wolf from Google. Clement, the floor is yours.
Sure thing. Hi, I hope you can see and hear me okay. It's an honor to be with you here today, at least remotely. So my name is Clement Wolf. I work at Google, where I lead our information quality strategy within the trust and safety team. However, I'm here today because, just as others on this panel, I have taken part for the past year and a half now in the drafting and compliance with the EU Code of Practice on Disinformation, alongside many others from Google and YouTube who are not here today. And so what I would like to do here today with you is outline briefly why we got involved in this process in the first place, what it has entailed for us, and to tease out some of the most important innovations of this code from my perspective, echoing, of course, Christina's excellent point about the code's framework overall. However, before I get into it, I should note that I am calling from DC, where it is a crisp 4 a.m., so please do excuse me if I skip a word here or there or misunderstand a question. I am not through my first coffee just yet. With this being said, going into why we joined. As you are aware, issues of information quality are core to our business, meaning that Google and YouTube organize information so as to help delight our users. Information that is misleading or harmful directly undercuts the value of our services. That is even more true when that information is about topics where reliability is of foremost importance to the people that use our services, such as topics of health, finances, civic participation, and more. And it has long been clear to us that a number of actors are interested in trying to manipulate our services in order to mislead the people who use them, and to seek financial or political gain, as sadly illustrated in the midst of the invasion of Ukraine. So we have long been committed towards tackling these threats across our services by investing in technological solutions to prioritize authoritative information across our services, by developing and enforcing rules that prohibit harmful behaviors or contents, and by developing a growing set of ways to empower people with context about information they might come across on our services. But as others have mentioned, this is a gnarly problem, one that goes beyond the scope of any one actor or any one set of services. It takes all corners of society engaging in a sustained discussion to make any sort of serious progress on these issues. And that is why we joined the prior iteration of the code in 2018, which was indeed a first of its kind. And we thought it was very productive. Obviously, though, the world has changed a lot since then, not least with the introduction of the Digital Services Act. And when the Commission put forward a plan to strengthen the code tethered to the DSA, we were equally committed to play our part. That's especially due, as I think was mentioned, to some of the important principles that the DSA upholds and that the code applies as well. Specifically, neither the DSA nor the code called for the removal or censorship of legal content. And I think that's a very important point. It's often misunderstood. That was essential for us, of course. Instead, the code's primary focus is on tackling objectively harmful behaviors such as fake accounts or other manipulative techniques, providing transparency and context to users, researchers, and fact checkers about the work that signatories do, about elevating authoritative information, collaborating across society, and curbing the financial incentives for disinformation. We also were very interested and heartened to see that it seeks commitment from other types of signatories than just platforms themselves, recognizing that it takes efforts from all parts of the information ecosystem to make progress. That's really a mindset that made us comfortable, that while it's never simple or straightforward to develop such an instrument, working together within the clear boundaries set by the DSA and the rule of law continues to be the best path forward. There's been a lot of work between then and today as we prepare to file our first baseline report under the code, as Christina mentioned, which teams, as I speak, are working around the clock to finalize. We're proud of our work so far, and of course, this first report won't be perfect, but it will represent a meaningful step forward that we will keep iterating on. So, things to highlight about the code, at least from my perspective. I would call out 4 things briefly, and of course, I am happy to elaborate upon them in questions. The first thing that I would highlight is the process that got us here. It was a time-consuming one, and that's because this is a very ambitious document, which aims to be relevant for many different types and sizes of signatories, ranging from large and small online services to civil society organizations, various actors of the advertising ecosystem, fact checkers, and more. Devising language that makes sense for everybody while remaining ambitious was a challenge that required many hours of discussion among a large group of stakeholders, the signatories that were outlined earlier, and regular consultations with the ecosystem. I don't think it's an understatement to say that we saw way too much of each other over the past year and a half. I think all those of us have been on this panel and many others, spending many hours every week going through details of every provision in the code and trying to figure out what are the best compromises, ironing out disagreements, going to the state of the art in terms of research or technique to better understand options. And I think that was immensely both challenging but constructive in delivering a robust instrument in the end. And that's, in and of itself, was a very interesting part of it. Which leads me to...
Mais vous pouvez permettre si vous voulez.
I think someone's mic is unmuted. Which leads me to the second point, from my perspective, that's innovative about this code, namely the creation of this permanent task force that was referred to before, which continues to meet and advance the code's work on a regular basis. That's a meaningful shift from the previous code, and I think from other instruments. The idea that this is not a one and done kind of thing where we would produce the code and then all go our own way and just focus on compliance. Instead, signatories continue to exchange, refine, and learn from one another, not just over the past 6 months since the code was signed, but in the foreseeable future, such that we can continue to either improve the code or continue to improve our collective understanding of the problem space and the solutions available and what's working and what's not. That to me, especially in light of the importance of leveraging the strengths of each corner of society to tackle the problem, really is a significant advance of this code, and one that has the potential to be most helpful in the future as we continue to better understand each other's point of views and methods. Also been a great forum for onboarding new signatories to the code, as coming into this process fresh continues to be, of course, daunting sometimes, especially for smaller signatories. So this task force can be a great way to give them points of contact to navigate the document and processes they are signing up for, and ensuring that they can weigh in on conversations that are relevant to them. Then on the substance, I would briefly call out as a third point that I know it was of particular import for many, that this code sets out a clear baseline of expectations when it comes to reducing the financial incentives for the creation and propagation of disinformation. And I think this chapter, which is, I think, one of the first chapters of the code, comes off as particularly robust, both requiring that signatories across the advertising ecosystem develop approaches, if they don't have them already, to address these challenges, and that they be transparent about the effects of their work, including, as previously mentioned, at the member state level. And given this is a space that is often scrutinized and discussed, I'm confident the code will provide more transparency and clarity over time, and hopefully a more advanced discussion on these topics. Finally, another part of the work that really sticks with me is that of the efforts made on developing a common language across around tools, techniques, and procedures, so-called TTPs, that malicious actors may leverage when attempting to manipulate online services. That may not sound like much, it's actually tricky. And that's because all online services are different, and therefore they all face different types of threats. And even when they face similar threats, these threats may manifest themselves very differently across different services. To be very concrete, for instance, the notion of fake accounts doesn't make as much sense in the context of, let's say, a search engine versus a social media platform where you have to create an account to create content. And that's just one example out of many. Yet, as we work across the ecosystem, not just platforms, but also academia, fact checkers, and beyond signatories, entities like EDMO or the EAS or others, trying to understand this space better, it is important to have a common frame of reference to discuss and analyze threats across the board. So the integrity of services, I think the chapter puts forward a modular approach in that space that I think is quite productive, listing a series of most relevant manipulative TTPs that bad actors can deploy or to create or disseminate disinformation, but leaving room to each signatory to clearly explain how these threats are relevant or not to their services and how they're addressing them specifically in light of their different profiles. So again, this is very high level, and I realize it's a lot of information, but to me, these are all examples that the code has advanced the kinds of discussion and the depth of discussions we can have across the board on these issues. And of course, there's a lot of work to do still under this code, and a lot we'll learn from each other. But it's been a really interesting journey so far, and I think I'm personally at least very proud of the work that collectively has been put in it by all signatories, because it really is a collective labor, I think, at this stage and for the future. So thank you very much for giving me time, and I look forward to questions and discussions.
Thank you very much, Clément. I think there is an issue with my camera, but we will continue. You don't need to say me. We have heard the point of view of one of the industry signatories. Now we will move and we will hear the voice of a civil society organization. We have with us Luca Nicotra from Avaz. Luca, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Alberto, and to Connect University for the invitation. Too bad we're not seeing you anymore, Alberto. So I'm Luca Nicotra, I'm a campaign director at Avaz. Avaz is a global civic organization. We have 70 million members all around the world. And yes, we see you again, Alberto. Great. And almost 20 million in Europe. And the mission of the organization is to tackle some of the biggest threats societies are facing in our time. And one of those is disinformation. And this is why in the last few years, we've been trying to be on the forefront of the public push to force social media platforms to address the harms they're partially responsible. And so we have published research on disinformation, its scale, sometimes evaluating the platform's efforts and identifying the failures. And also we've been working on solutions with experts, sometimes with the platforms themselves, as mentioned by both Clement and Christina, in the attempt to find balanced solution that would protect freedom of speech on one side and allow us to tackle the big consequence of that the information has on the tissue, the scientific community, the trust in institutions, the democratic processes. And this is why, we're here today. And I think we've been among the first 3 civil society organizations to join the code. It wasn't easy. It was an easy decision. The previous code, let's put it this way, didn't have an amazing reputation, especially among the civil society groups. So it has been a big debate, even internally, to join or not. And also, it wasn't easy when we joined. Clement will remember, I think the industry players were used to discuss mostly among themselves from the previous process. And so now we had a multi-stakeholder process with very different, I can assure you, very different point of view on a lot of different topics. And so we fundamentally had to rethink the entire process, hire an independent and trusted honest broker. And also, as Christina mentioned earlier, we had to rethink the code, and we added a new layer of specificity where each of the platform would not just make general commitments, but then would commit to specific measure that would adapt specifically to their services. I think overall it has been not an easy ride, but it's indeed a pretty impressive multi-stakeholder process that now is basically will become permanent with thanks to the permanent task force that will be in charge of monitoring the code, where civil society groups, fact-check organizations, research organizations, other experts will be part of monitoring the effectiveness and helping evolving the code over time. I do indeed agree with others that this is a first of its kind initiative and process, and we're proud to be part of it. So I think a lot have been said of what the content of the code is. I think I want to mention a few more elements. One is we're especially interested into research and access to data for researchers, and major platforms have committed to fund and collaborate with an independent third-party body that will grant access to their own data and allow researcher, academics, CSO to assess their performance, and this is key. And also, as we heard, that removal of content is not the way to approach disinformation. The focus that has been put on, first of all, algorithms So to stop, to what we call detoxing their algorithms, stop the accelerated spread of disinformation, including, clear indicator to assess whether, their efforts are working. Also the focus on labeling disinformation, and I'm sure that Carlos from Maldita will spend some time on that. And then on another point that Christina touched, the need to have country level transparency, because a lot of research that we have done and others have done in this space showed how in many cases, we have two different services, one offered to the English users of these platforms and a different service, which much poorer content moderation in other languages, especially the smaller ones. And so this needs, to be very transparent. So this is, fundamentally what we think it's strong about the code. I must say that one of the main reasons that we have joined the code in the first place is also its connection with the Digital Services Act. And so it has been touched upon before, but fundamentally the Digital Services Act will consider adherence and compliance with code of conducts, like the code of practice could become, a risk mitigation measure. And I think this it's kind of a very innovative way. Of course, the code remains voluntary, but the platforms have an incredible incentive to join and comply with it because it represents sort of insurance policy, right? So there is this clear public expectation, what they're expected to do. If they do it, it's very likely they're compliant with risk mitigation for disinformation, right? And this also means that, I think on the other side, we really believe that this interaction with the DSA really makes sense. Because technology evolves really faster, and so the solutions to the harms that they create. And so while the DSA offers this lasting framework to deal with harmful but legal content, we need some flexible tools, right? Such as the code of practice, that can evolve on a constant basis and also keep the platforms accountable to specific measures that can change over time as scientific understanding of what is working and what is not evolves over time. The last point I want to make is that, of course, for now, it's all on paper. And the reputation, the credibility of the code will be on the line in the next few months. And so, first, it's going to be about how decisive the assessment of the baseline first, and then the first round of report will be. We know that there are going to be gaps, but we'll need to hear the specifics. Who is doing an egregious work? Who is not? What are clearly the gaps? And also, we will need the institutions to make clear as soon as possible that the commitments and the transparency requirements included in the code are this very minimal required risk mitigation against the spread of disinformation, also under the DSA. And knowing that failure to comply with those commitments will have consequences and likely sanctions under the DSA. I think if this happens, then we indeed have created a powerful instrument to fight disinformation, keeping a multi-stakeholder process involved, and I'm really hopeful that this can work, and we'll do our best on our side to make sure it happens. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Luca, for providing the point of view of the civil society with your intervention. I will go then to the next speaker, which will bring us the point of view of the fact checkers. They have been a new actor in the drafting this new code. So it will be very interesting to hear what Carlos Echeverria from Maldita has to say about. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alberto, and thanks to the University for the invitation. As Alberto was saying, my name is Carlos Hernandez. I'm the head of public policy at Spanish fact checker Maldita.es. I'm also heading policy issues for the newly created European fact-checking association that already has been launched by more than 40 organizations across Europe, and then will, in all likelihood, become a signatory of the Code of Practice very soon. So just to start, I'm going to try to give you a little context of where we are coming from when it comes to the code. As many in the anti-disinformation community, fact checkers were generally not reluctant, but certainly a little bit suspicious of purely self-regulation efforts. They had been equated in the past to a lot of good words and intentions and very little action. But nevertheless, we decided to join the process, as my colleagues have been saying, the long process to produce and negotiate this new code of practice, because we thought this had a chance at being different, of having more results, at having a level of detail and a level of commitment that could really bring some difference to users when facing disinformation, which was our main focus. Our main focus here. It's obviously soon to have any kind of definitive judgment on the code. This code is going to be judged on results. It certainly could be a pity that after all these efforts, this doesn't become as meaningful as we would like it to be. And I think as the text itself allows all the actors to be in terms of fighting disinformation. So just to give you a brief outline of the things that I consider most important about the code. Obviously, the code itself, in more ways than the previous one, it creates a space of frank exchanges and conversation among very important actors in that can really get things going and create opportunities to fight disinformation. And that is important, but that by itself is not much, I would say. So it's really about the commitments that each signatory has taken, that the probability for success in this gets bigger. From the fact checkers, probably the most interesting parts of the code are not only in the fact-checking chapter, but also in the fact-checking chapter about integration of fact-checking in different services. Fact checkers, as you probably know, the independent fact-checking organizations are a rarity in the sense that they are basically in every single country of the European Union, every member state, and they already do a lot of work that can be very useful to fight disinformation in many ways. So when we decided about how to push for integration of fact-checking and consistent use of fact-checking through the code, it was by contemplating that this is, as many of my colleagues said, a very complex issue, but that there was very good material there that could have a real impact in the experience of users, and that even if it's complex to know how to address this multifaceted problem, that level of complexity cannot translate or lead us to inaction. Things have to be tried, solutions have to be thought out, and the code really seems to me like giving different services different ways to approach this problem, not being overly prescriptive in some solutions, because services being different and signatories being different, the application of the solutions cannot be exactly the same. But yes, the code establishes some general guidelines and some detailed metrics that are very important. And I think about fact-checking, it clearly states that signatories need to integrate or consistently use fact-checking in different ways that benefit their users. And I think that's a very, very important provision in the code. That it also calls for rethinking the way we have gone about data access in the past. Like fact checkers, for example, we certainly need to know how to be more effective, how to get our content or our other uses of fact checking to be more effective in helping users. But we also need more from, for example, the bigger platforms in the room, as to being able to understand and be able to see rapidly how this information is flowing across services. Where do we need to put our attention? What do we need to prioritize in terms of this information? Sometimes the kind of data we need to make those judgments to know not how to fact check something, but where to investigate or what should be calling our attention. Sometimes that kind of information and data can only come from the bigger platforms in the room. So it's important that data access and all the conversations on data sharing happen in that way. And I think the code can be meaningful for that. But as with all the other things, it remains to be seen how serious everybody is about the commitments. Obviously, as Luca was mentioning, and I couldn't agree more, then a lot of actors that would normally couldn't have confidence in such a code, they do now, and I include myself, because of the possibilities of the code becoming and surely becoming a code of conduct under DSA, and providing a bigger incentive for the major players, especially big online platforms, very large online platforms, to act. And that is, I think, the key to this, the key that explains that this exercise has more credibility than others in the past. But obviously, that credibility only goes as far as people see real results, and if they don't see real results, they see consequences for the signatories that haven't achieved those results. So in that sense, it's incredibly important the next coming months, the next year in particular. We all know the first set of reports is due, the baseline reports is due in January. Nobody expects them to be perfect. This is a first, obviously, but we should all have in mind that the code is supposed to be already in effect, and it's been for 6 months. So we should start seeing the kind of changes that particularly the bigger players in this conversation are taking, because the code is already in place. That doesn't change the fact that as long as we still don't have declarations of very large online platforms under the DSA, so we don't have the kind of incentive that DSA provides for actions and meaningful measures under the DSA. So we have I would say 6 months to a year in front of us that should really change the landscape and the way many actors think and act about this information. And if we don't see that kind of change, then we will have to pass a harsh judgment on this effort. And obviously, this will bring many actors in the conversation to say, okay, we tried self-regulation, we tried co-regulation. What are we going to do next if this problem is not solved? That kind of that reflection doesn't stop me from saying that I think it's a great thing what this code has become, in the sense of, as Clement was saying, for example, getting many actors to talk about the same issues with the same terminology, establish direct lines of contact between different people and different organizations to address urgent matters. And there is no way of not realizing how difficult is this. As Luca was saying, this is a problem that is growing and that is changing its substance every day. It's difficult to address it perfectly, but at least we should be in a few months to a year saying that we are doing some serious progress about this. For fact checkers, obviously, this is a very important major conversation. This is a conversation we want to be involved. We think we have been observing many organizations for 10 years now, this problem of disinformation. We think we have a lot to contribute to this kind of policy conversations, that we generally can provide our expertise so solutions are better and more effective. And for example, one of the conversations we're going to have is about removals, that is a word that has been mentioned quite often already in this conversation, and how fact checkers have been saying for years that removing content in almost, because of disinformation concerns, in almost every case is a mistake, and we should be focusing on providing context. This is something that I think it has garnered the major agreement of most experts for years now, and still we see that it's implemented by every big actor in that way, and that removals keep occurring in a way that generates distrust. So these are the kind of things that we hope that this code can change, that can not deny the complexity of the issues, but that actually ensures that the things that we know or we have good reason to think they work, they are applied consistently and across every member states. Because algorithmic solutions, and will be my last idea for this presentation. At this point, even if we wish hard that we could find out some automatic response to disinformation, technology is not yet there in the sense of perfectly understanding human language in 30 languages, and getting sarcasm and getting irony in a way that is, that we can be confident enough to extract human beings from the process. That is simply not the way things are as we stand. And I think we need to be, and this code needs to be ready to evolve, but at the same time recognize that there are limits right now to what we can do automatically without infringing on freedom of speech, which is very dear to, I think, everyone that is involved in this code. So saying that, I am open to questions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And Carlos was the last speaker of this first part of the event. And we are a little bit behind schedule, but there are a lot of questions in Slido, and I would like to take some time and trying to, summarize a little bit the sense of these questions so that we can try to respond to as many as possible of those. So there is, I think, an interesting question about. There are several questions about the role of artificial intelligence in the spread of disinformation. We have probably all heard about ChatGPT, and a new service that is available online. People have seen that it can also spread, or this type of services can also spread disinformation. And in general, we know that artificial intelligence can be used maliciously to generate deep fakes. So how do you think that the current code is fit to these challenges? And if not, how it should evolve? This is a question I have for our three speakers. I would really recommend very quick answer in order to be able also to answer other questions. Maybe let me change strategy. Let's also include another set of questions so that you can also answer them. Another question or another set of questions is about how to ensure the enforcement of the code, basically, because people in the chat are saying, well, self-regulation did not work, how we should go ahead, and therefore other people are asking, how is the interlink between the DSA and the code? I know that Christina had to leave, so I can also take part in answering this question. So I will go with that. I don't know if there is anyone. I see Clement saying.
Sure. On the first question, the very least, I'm happy to help. Of course, that's something everyone, I think, is tracking closely. There's a lot to say about how concerned or not concerned to be about this conversation. And obviously, the first discussions about the potential of large language models to support disinformation campaign date back from a few years, but there's also reasons to be optimistic. Point is, the question is about the code specifically. The code does have a provision about the use of deepfakes, in this case, within the integrity of services chapter as a threat that services commit to combat. Obviously, I think it can be expanded to consider other forms of generative AI, such as LLMs in this case, but also that's the value of this code, which is one that is future-proof and where these TTPs continue to be fine-tuned over time. If we find there is a gap here, we have the possibility to address it. That's exactly why the permanent task force model is one that's valuable in this context. So I'm optimistic that the current phrasing of this code is already fit for purpose, but if not, we have the room to adjust it over time if we find a gap.
Thank you very much, Clem. Luca, Carlos?
Sure. So on the questions about AI systems, I think in many ways you can consider also recommender systems part of that bucket, and I think assessing recommender system role in the dissemination of disinformation and mitigating the risk that they disseminate disinformation. So the recommender system are those who choose what you see when you open, your social media or your content moderation platform. Those is going to be one of the key parts of the code, and also are one of the focus areas of the DSA. So let's see how that battlefield evolves, because that's going to be one of the first ones. On top of everything that Clement said, on the more future-looking issues that will emerge, and on the enforcement of the code of practice, I think I mentioned it before. I think it will be a lot on how EU institutions react, and so how they implement the monitoring, and then how they are specific and pointing at the platforms that are successful in delivering and those that are not, and what the gaps are. And that when the DSA is going to be enforceable, and I think it has been tweeted that 1st of September could be the date, by one of the commissioners. So by when that is actually enforceable, then it's clear that there will be consequences. And the DSA mentioned up to 5% of global turnover as a potential fine. So that should be totally on the table in case of substantial non-compliance. Yeah, I think those are the two questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Luca. I don't know if Carlos wants to add something. Otherwise, I would say a couple of words.
Super briefly, Alberto, I would say that we are all obviously worried about potential uses of AI for this and how prepared we are to address them. I would say that the code is a good starting point because it contemplates this kind of uses, but at the speed the technology is going, it's gonna just highlight the need to keep this updated and update it in practical ways by exchanging information about different bad uses that are doing about AI, and also highlights, in my opinion, how human intervention, it remains key in many of those issues, because those, natural language processing, machine learning, it all breeds from the way those operate and those systems learn how to do the stuff. and that comes from from heavy human biases, and I don't think that can be overlooked in the way we fight that. As for enforcement, very briefly, this as the law stands now with DSA, when it's finally completely in place, this stands on the shoulders of the Commission, and we all expect that if there is a clear departure from risk mitigation obligations under the DSA, and this for disinformation, this code is a very prominent one, that there will be consequences, and there being consequences is the best guarantee for the general public to know that they can trust the process and they can trust the code. So I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but in the end, I think it's important that those consequences exist if there is non-compliance.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I would really conclude this session saying that, in particular regarding what is happening now with the DSA in place, is that we are moving for disinformation and for other type of harmful content from self-regulation to co-regulation. So, as the other speaker said, there are rules in place that will need to be respected by a particular very large online platform. We will see who this platform will be after the designation process. From the Commission point of view, the Commission has set in the guidance that was published in 2021, Commission set clearly what are the gaps and the shortcomings of the previous code. We believe that the new code has addressed these gaps and shortcomings. Of course, it depends also on how the code will be implemented. And we will start soon to monitor the implementation of the code. We have the baseline reports that are expected for the end of this month. And we expect major platform to report again in July. So this will also help us and the signatory of the code to be ready for when the DSA will be fully implemented. So that's what I can add to what has been already said. I would now thank these speakers. Thank you, Clem. Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, Christina. It was a great session, I think. It gave a good, quick, but good overview of what the code is about, what we can expect in the future. So thank you again. And without further ado, I will move to the next session, which is about about EDMO, the European Digital Media Observatory. I will have a couple of slides to introduce the session. Give me a second to make sure that you can see those. It seems that I have not the right to share my screen. Or maybe is someone else sharing his screen now? Now I am the presenter, so yes. Give me a second. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. I have a couple of slides to introduce the European Digital Media Observatory. As I said at the beginning, this is the other pillar of our strategy to tackle disinformation. And while the code is a top-down approach, I would say EDMO is a very much bottom-up approach. EDMO aims at creating a cross-border multidisciplinary community of independent fact-checkers, academic researchers, and other relevant stakeholders that are together to fight the phenomenon of disinformation. So EDMO and its hubs, you will see later the structure of EDMO, have as a main goal to work together jointly to detect, analyze, and expose potential disinformation threats. They are working also on creating repository of fact checks. They work on tailored media literacy activities, and they are providing feedback for policymakers regarding the phenomenon of disinformation. Let me say that EDMO and the platform that is provided foster the joint work, joint activity, fact-checking, research activity, but is also a great platform for sharing best practices between the relevant stakeholders. Important element of EDMO is independence. So it's financed by the European Commission, but he runs completely independently from the Commission. There is a governance board that is made by experts in relevant discipline that decide the strategy of EDMO. So there is no interference from the Commission and from any other public authority. So far, we have invested 25 million euros, and this has served to launch in 2020 the Observatory and its central platform, and to finance 14 EDMO hubs. We have started in May 2021 with the first 8 hubs covering Ireland, Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Poland, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden, and Norway. So these 8 hubs, some of these hubs cover more than one member state. And recently we were able to complete and achieve a full coverage of EDMO by adding the remaining member states. So as it was said at the beginning, the phenomenon of disinformation is borderless. That's why it's important to have in place these structures that allows to work together on the phenomenon of disinformation, to make sure that the best practice are implemented all over Europe. And I think the next speaker will give you a flavor of what they are doing, of what EDMO is about. We will start from presenting what we call EDMO Central, so the coordinating platforms. And we will have with us Paula Gori and Miguel Maduro from the European University Institute in Florence, and they are the coordinator of the EDMO Central platform. And then we will have speakers from 2 of the apps. So Paula and Miguel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alberto. So I'm Miguel Poyares Maduro. I'm the chair of the executive board of EDMO, and Paula, that will speak after me, is the Secretary General of EDMO. I will share a presentation with you, or at least I hope it. Well, it tells me I can't share content. So when we tried in the test form, they had to make it possible, but now again it's telling me I cannot share the content. So yeah, you are now a presenter. Okay, I assume I will now be able to. Good. Okay. So as Alberto said, the European Digital Media Observatory is above all a platform that brings together all the different stakeholders, or aims to bring together all the different stakeholders in Europe that work and fighting disinformation, from fact-checking organizations to academic researchers to media literacy experts. The purpose of our of EDMO is really to bring a network and a platform among all these stakeholders. We do that in the context of an organization that, as was also mentioned by Alberto, is an independent organization, set up to be independent from public authority and private interests. And this is so in its composition, in its rules, but also secure by its governance model. and it has as its main purposes collecting facts, evidences throughout Europe and disseminating those, identifying, for example, what are the most common trends on disinformation in Europe, but also creating repositories of fact-checking information, of fact-checking or research being conducted, and offering tools to all these different stakeholders. As it was also mentioned by Alberto, and to a large extent, I'm repeating what he says in here because we're both describing EDMO and its nature. It is a multi-stakeholder and multidisciplinary organization, and it aims to be so. The purpose, as I said, is precisely that of bringing together all these different stakeholders. EDMO has now been complemented by the creation of a variety of EDMOs at national and regional level, and regional in this sense means from more than one member state in the European Union, that currently now finally cover the entire space of the European Union. So EDMO is now both EDMO Central. I don't like that expression of central, but it is for the sake of simplicity what we use, but also this network of hubs that come together in this platform, and that detect and analyze this information, produce content for mainstream and local media and public authorities exposing this disinformation, organize media literacy activities, and provide support to national authorities for monitoring, for example, online platform policies and the digital media ecosystem. And so the relationship between EDMO and EDMO hubs feed EDMO, and EDMO helps disseminating, making more visible, and promoting the cooperation between all these different hubs that exist at the national and regional levels. To give you an idea of what EDMO Central does, we have some examples here, both in the area of the current work that we do in terms of at the European level, by making use of what all our stakeholders are conducting, rendering more visible the current patterns in terms of disinformation, the most common disinformation stories, but also media literacy activities. But I also want to give Paula the opportunity to speak in this brief 7 minutes that we have. So maybe, Paula, you can conduct the rest couple of slides that we have. Maybe you can do that.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Miguel. We wanted to bring you some examples of this whole collaboration. And so you see here on this slide, there is an image of the database that we have on the EDMO EU website. This is a database that was set the moment the invasion of Russia started, and you can find there the fact-checking articles that were produced in the various member states by the fact-checkers in our network. It is updated regularly, and you can also filter the articles by, for example, country or keywords and so on. And we believe this is very useful for people in the sector, but in general also for citizens, because you can immediately access fact-checking articles on the war. We also wanted to show you these two slides to show you how much actually disinformation narratives, they follow some trends. You see here, these are our last numbers, in which you see that actually right now, or this refers to December, the percentage of disinformation on the war dropped, and it's almost the same than the percentage of disinformation on COVID and on climate change. You see also in the slide below how the COVID disinformation dropped immediately, basically, when the war started. And we have evidence about the fact that the same people who were, not all of course, but many spreaders of disinformation related to COVID started spreading disinformation on the war immediately the day the invasion started. The same way during the summer, for example, as we know, it was quite a hot summer. As we were expecting, this information on climate change was raising in those months. So these are just a couple of examples to show you how much it is important to have, for in this case, fact checkers in the various member states, but then also a possibility to centrally or at EU level compare all this data. To go back also to some other examples that Miguel was mentioning before, and also by other colleagues in this seminar, EDMO is working a lot on making sure that researchers can access data from the platforms for research purposes. There are already some data sets that are available, but they are not sufficient. And for those who are not familiar with this, these data are actually very important because they would allow us to really understand how the disinformation trends and phenomena start, by who are, define better the super spreaders, or in general the spreaders, and identify the techniques. So they are indeed very important, and EDMO is working to make sure that this can happen, of course, in full compliance with any regulation related to data protection. This links also back to the DSA that was mentioned before, because there again it is stated that this access should be given, and EDMO is also working on setting an intermediary body that could vet the researchers and check that access is given. And to go back to the third pillar, media literacy, what you can find on our website, for example, now is country profiles listing media literacy initiatives run in the various member states. Here again, our hubs are the providers of those data. For those who know about media literacy, it's a very, very wide topic, and there are many different actors providing media literacy initiatives, very different target audiences. There is a challenge in identifying the impact of these media literacy initiatives, and also in identifying best practices. So this is where EDMO is also working. And I think indeed we have a next slide, which is, of course, in 7 minutes we had really to make decisions, but we wanted to highlight the fact that EDMO has a training program. This might be of interest for you as well, because this is trainings on different topics related to disinformation. We just yesterday had a very, very interesting one on disinformation and historical approaches to disinformation and conspiracy theories. So this was something that, for example, for policymakers could be quite interesting. We have others which are more related, for example, to fact checkers, others to assessing the impact of media literacy. We will be having one on policy. So these trainings are trying to cover various aspects in line with our DNA, which is multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder, and they are taking place online and without a fee. So in case you are interested, you can just check them on the EDMO website. I think we will close here because we are running out of time, but we are, of course, open to any question.
Thank you very much, Paula and Miguel. We will have some time, a few minutes at the end of this session for questions. I will give the floor now to Anja Grabovac. She's from the Central Eastern European Digital Media Observatory. This is one of the hubs that started in 2021. Let me add an additional word on the structure of EDMO. Why there is not a unique entity, but why we have this structure with the hubs. The reason is that it's true that disinformation is borderless, and that often narratives are the same, but very often they are adjusted to the local information environment. So it's important to have experts from the different member states that are capable to put that narratives in the context in the local context. So without further ado, Anja, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alberto. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be part of this session, and I'm going to show you some slides that I prepared regarding EDMO. So I hope you're able to see. Okay, perfect. So my name is Anja Grabovac. I'm the project manager of EDMO, and today I want to focus on Central Europe, specifically on Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, which EDMO is covering. As you can see on this picture, so the focus is on Central Europe, even though that we now have actually a couple of more new hubs focused on Austria, Germany, or Hungary, for example. Okay, so as you heard already, We are a multidisciplinary hub, so we're focusing on 3 countries. We actually have 8 partners, Charles University being kind of the leader or the lead coordinator, but we have different kinds of university, for example, one in Poland, SVPS, or we have a technical university in Prague, in Czech Republic. At the same time, we are coordinating or cooperating with AFP, ATC, and we have also a couple of subcontractors spread around these countries. So you can see we're really covering the whole region, let's say, or the heart of Europe as such. And now I wanted to talk about it kind of really going back to the basics. So who we are, what we do, what is our purpose basically. So the goal is in a way twofold, and that is to kind of detect, identify the sources and causes of disinformation. And the second is to propose a set of recommendations, be it for the civil society, public institutions, or even the private sector. This is tightly close to the mission. Again, we have, I would say, the 3 core points, which is to decrease the harm of disinformation. So this is related to, all the democratic processes, social cohesion, also connected to the speech, harmful speech. And we do this by actually focusing on the fact-checking activities, but also related to the help of like AI technology. So what we do is actually we have experts like producing AI tools to support the fact-checkers activities. So this is something like one of the activities that we do. And the second mission of TEDMO is to strengthen transparency and an understanding actually of what disinformation, misinformation is about. And here we have media and digital literacy experts in the European region and the impact it has on society and democracy. I'm going to speak about this a bit later, so I'm going to give you some conclusions and findings of one of our studies. Then the second objective that I want to highlight here are the media literacy activities that we are producing and focusing on. The third one are the fact-checking, kind of the continuous flow of fact checks. This is a huge part of not only our hub, but all of the hubs, as which are part of EDMO. And finally, probably one of the most important is definitely the cooperation with the national authorities and preparing of reports, like recommendations, for example, when it comes to the regulation activities, which is something that we will produce in about 2 months. And here you can see kind of the behind the scenes or all of the activities they're working on. So we have our website where you can find out quite a lot of information, some of it in details on what we're doing, what is ahead of us, some of the latest updates, and also, let's say, the fact checkers or the fact checks that we do. And, we also obviously focus on dissemination and communication, organizing or co-organizing different events, conferences. And the 3 circles, let's say, are some of the activities that we're producing. So be it impact analysis, tech tools development in relation to fact-checking, or the cooperation with national authorities, advices to regulators, policymakers, and finally, some of the events, webinars, roundtables that I mentioned before. And now the second part of this presentation is really, I wanted to kind of zoom in into, I think, one of the most important analysis or projects that we do in TEDMO, and that is the analysis of impact of disinformation on the society. And the research focus is quite specific, so that's why I pointed out here. So it's not only about kind of the impact and perception, but also the experts are looking at the definition of the approach in different sources, different groups. So be it the fact checkers, PR specialists, journalists, or the public actually. And the researchers are also looking at the textual ways of how disinformation works or can work, and also the graphic structure. And finally, one of the studies also that will be published very soon on our website is also focusing kind of on the geopolitical context. So we have one comparative analysis as well of these 3 countries. And now finally, I want to show you one study which focuses on the disinformation trends in connection with the war in Ukraine. So here in this slide, you can see some of numbers related to the study, concretely to the pro-Russian narratives used against Ukraine. And here is a question that was posed as part of the research, and that is whether the Ukraine government is fascist or Nazi in character. And in the numbers, you can see both kind of the similarities, which in a way is that the minorities across these three countries, so in Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, are actually directed against, and that minorities of these three countries are less susceptible to these campaigns, produced by Russia. But at the same time, we can see some variation in terms of the population. So let's say in terms of the sensitivity of where they are, they're actually believing these disinformation, misinformation. So here we can see that Poland is kind of the strongest in a way, that they're the least susceptible to these campaigns or the narratives, while Czech Republic is kind of in the middle, and Slovakia with 37% is kind of the most susceptible to these trends. Related to this is also kind of one of the consequences of these campaigns and of the war in general, which is, the influx of Ukraine refugees across Europe. And here, our researchers also focused on this. And one of the aim, or actually the concluding parts, was that these narratives against Ukraine refugees are again widespread in Slovakia. Czech Republic is at the middle, while they're weakest in Poland. So we can see this trend also when it comes to the, refugee question. I have another slide, which is concerning kind of like the opinion about the war in general, who is responsible, who is not. So on the left-hand side, you can see how the population across these three countries thinks of the Russia and the responsibility. So we can see Poland is with almost 80% affirmative in that it's actually, Russians responsible. Slovakia, again, kind of being in the third place with being more perhaps thinking that they're, perhaps Ukraine is responsible as well, or other countries as well. So we can see some variations in terms of this. However, Slovaks, again, most think that it's, it's kind of more complicated, that all parties bear responsibility. And I think, as you can see clear from the previous slide and this one, actually, that pro-Ukrainian and pro-Western narratives are the most widespread, in Poland. So we can actually see perhaps that given the historical background, that Poland and Czech Republic are kind of the most strongly opposing this pro-Russian narratives and disinformation campaigns. Okay, and that's actually it from my side. I hope I will stick to the 10 minutes.
Thank you, Anya. You were perfect.
Thank you.
And I would this was kind of a snapshot of what the hubs are doing from one of the, let's say, old hubs, the one that started back in 2021. We have with us also Stefan Munges that will give us an idea of what a new hub will do. The hubs have just started to be operational since a few months. So I would give you the floor, Stefan.
Thank you, Alberto, and thank you for having me today. I think I'll be able to share some slides with you. So my name is Stefan. I'm the General Manager of the Institute of Journalism at TU Dortmund University, and I'm one of the coordinators of the German Austrian Digital Media Observatory. We started the project last November, so we are really young. And we are 7 partners. You can see them on the right-hand side. So with DPA, the German press agency, AFP, Agence France Presse, and their German-speaking branch, of course, Correctiv, which is a non-profit journalists organization, and the Austrian press agency, APA. We we have the 4 major fact-checking organizations in the German-speaking member states in our consortium, which we're very happy about. It's actually, to our knowledge, the first time that these 4 very big partners cooperate in such a manner. The Austrian Institute of Technology is one of our scientific partners. The Athens Technology Center is our technical partner, which makes sure that we can work smoothly within the ETMO network, and who also set up our hub website. And with the TU Dortmund University, we are partners of the consortium with 2 institutions. So I'm from the Institute of Journalism. We coordinate the entire project and our scientific partner. And we also have our colleagues from the Faculty of Statistics that do a lot of automated content analysis for us. The initial project duration is 30 months. Though we hope that we will be able to continue this important work after this period. Just to give you a quick overview of what we do or what we're planning to do, because we just started, it sort of mirrors and is corresponds to what Paula, Miguel, and Anya already proposed and presented to you. So mainly what we do is, of course, fact-checking. That's a very major part of our project. We have our 4 partners that I just mentioned, that I'm in charge of that, and that sort of corresponds with a task we call the monitoring of disinformation. So our partners look at what's out there, what are the narratives that are being spread, what sort of the content that is being spread in this realm, and to share this information across the ETMO network as well. And then we are doing media literacy activities, which are very hands-on. So they are focused at 2 target groups. Firstly, the general public, so citizens. We organize media literacy workshops in this regard, and we also do trainings for journalists in person and digital to spread fact-checking techniques and state-of-the-art cases. Then we also do, of course, scientific work, which we aim at both institutions and stakeholders as well as the general public, those of the general public that are interested in scientific findings. And our research is organized in 3 pillars. So first of all, we do an evaluation of the fact-checking corpus that our partners and media organizations in Germany and Austria produce. We've already started with that. And the second is we intend to analyze patterns of the spread of disinformation. With this task, we are very looking forward to coordinate and work with the ETMO network in gaining access to platform data, because I think it's fair to say that just as a German-speaking project, we would have some leverage, but in a network like ETMO provides, it's much easier, and you have a lot more leverage to actually bring institutions or bring the big technology companies to actually give you access to relevant data sets. So that's the second pillar, and the third pillar is in evaluation and development of artificial intelligence tools for the detection of manipulated media, especially of manipulated images, audio, and video. Our colleagues from the Austrian Institute of Technology have already done very impressive work in this field, and we're happy that they will be able to continue this work within our project. And then there's one more aspect which is, I think, very relevant to the session today. We also work on the monitoring of the implementation of the Code of Practice on Disinformation. That's sort of where we're still in early stages, because we're also waiting on the baseline reports of the signatories. But we're developing a framework in exchange with our colleagues from the ETMO network of how to monitor the implementation efficiently. And we are also in close contact with the relevant national regulatory authorities in Germany and Austria, who are already also represented in ERGA. So we're very much looking forward to this work. And I already mentioned several times that we're in close contact with the EDMO network, and that several activities are in coordination with the EDMO network. And I would also like to mention that our fact-checking partners have a platform which Miguel introduced to facilitate Europe-wide cooperation of fact-checkers, and we're very much looking forward to this work. Just to wrap this up, there's a couple of objectives and indicators so that you can actually see what we're doing and what we want to be measured by. So over the course of the next 28 months, so we have already started, but 30 months in total, we will produce 3,000 fact checks. We're on a good trajectory there. We will supply continuous monitoring of disinformation campaigns, scientific analysis of disinformation patterns, performance evaluation of tools and AI models for identifying manipulation in multimedia data. We'll organize 4 media literacy workshops for citizens and journalists, and we'll report twice on the implementation on the Code of Practice of Disinformation. And all this is going to be communicated and disseminated through in-person events, through digital events, but mainly through our website, our social media channels. And that's what I wanted to get to at the end of my short presentation, because I think we're running out of time. What's coming soon is our website, getmo.eu, which will go live, I think, in the next 1 or 2 weeks, depending on how our meeting today goes, because I'm in Berlin for the first in-person meeting of all our partners. And we'll be happy to share our work on the website, and all fact checks in the German-speaking area will be accessible through getmo.eu. And that's my short presentation for you, and I'm looking forward to any questions.
Thank you, Stefan. Stefan was the last speaker. I would take still a couple of minutes for a question. Before going to the question, let me invite everybody that is connected here to go and visit the website, the EDMO website at edmo.eu, where you can find also the links to the existing hubs, so that you can also retrieve information in your mother tongue regarding what is happening in your region regarding this information. I think that's also another useful outcome, is to have the possibility to have a unique website where all this information can be somehow retrieved. I have a few questions regarding EDMO. I think the first one I will ask Paula if the EDMO trainings are available online.
Yes, so they take place online, and they are not recorded, so we don't put them then again online, also because very often we encourage interaction with the participants. But yes, they take place online, and you can register on the EDMO website. Okay,
very good. And then there is a question, I think it's more about the working, the cooperation among the hubs. And maybe Paula, but also Anya, that has a little bit more experience. Could you give a flavor of how the cooperation is implemented among the different stakeholders involved through the hubs?
So if it's fine with Anya, I start and then I give you the floor then. So indeed, the EDMO, which we don't like to call central, so now we call it EDMO EU platform, is there to make sure, or to help actually our hubs to coordinate on various projects. As it was rightly mentioned by Alberto, the local elements, so the language element, for example, and the characteristics of the various member states play an important role when it's about disinformation. So that's why our hubs are so important. But then actually cooperation among them is also helpful. I give you some examples. It was mentioned also right now by Stefan. We have this collaborative platform for researchers and for fact checkers. There, the fact checkers of the various hubs, they can, for example, do joint investigations, or they can share best practices, or they can do some early warnings on disinformation narratives they're seeing entering in their member states, and that might actually also join other member states. Then there can be possibilities for the hubs to, for example, run joint research projects, because maybe they focus on some specific areas and they can do that. Together. As it was again mentioned before, also on the implementation of the code of practice, there is this kind of a coordination plan to so far monitor, for example, which are the policies in place in the various member states, and then move to the code. So as you see, the idea of this collaboration really is because there are local dimensions which are very important, but then there is an overall need for coordination and also for sharing best practices, because very often similar initiatives are run in different member states, and that's an opportunity to avoid duplication on one side, but also to learn from each other. But I want to give the floor also to my colleagues who can give you more details on that as well.
Sure. Thank you, Paula. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of a couple of examples. One of them is being the dissemination of, the project activities that we do. So we would share it on a regular basis with EDMO. They would make sure that it's on the website or on the social media. Then another point, which I think is really effective, is I think it's going to be more on a regular basis now, but we're having like coordination meetings or happening across Europe or online. And I think this is really, a good way to get to know each other, especially now that we have, it's 14 of us, 14 hubs. So it's quite a lot of, organizations, a lot of people from different kinds of background, from different sorts of rounds of Europe. So that's definitely great. So I would just highlight these two aspects really, or maybe the third one, which I think we will focus on in the upcoming months, is definitely setting up research groups or working groups, whatever you call it, and working on a specific topic, which I think is great because, again, some of us focus on, let's say, Central Europe or on the Balkan region. So it's good that we can, share the knowledge that we have and the expertise that we have. Thank you.
Great. I would also... You mentioned the Balkans, Anya, and there is also some interest in the chat regarding an international dimension of EDMO, the need to, because of the borderless nature of this information, the need to look also to what is happening outside the European borders. I don't know if some of you has something to share with us.
Yeah, so from my side, what I can say is it's definitely true. Of course, I think that the idea of the Commission also was to start with the focus on the member states, but keeping in mind the international dimension of it. And that's why, for example, we are in the discussions with the US counterparts in the TTC agreements. We have run a training on disinformation for media practitioners active on Africa, for example. So, and we are planning to continue collaborating with third-party organizations which are also outside the EU. There, of course, again, always there is this language element which is very important. Also, of course, the collaboration has different levels and in different focuses, if you want. But it's also a matter of, we need to have experts in the various languages, of course, to make sure that also, and this is very important, let me say, for example, with fact-checking organizations, we have certain standards that the fact-checking organization need to respect if they want to enter the network. So if we open also to other countries, it's important that we have the clear knowledge and also language knowledge to make sure that we collaborate, if you want, with the right persons, with the right organizations.
Great. I don't know if there are any other intervention. Otherwise, yes, Anya, you want to say something?
Yeah, just specifically to the Balkans, because actually I had the honor of meeting like the main coordinator of the new hub in Croatia and Slovenia, and we had some meetings online and in person. So I know that they're actually focusing, given that they're focusing Croatia and Slovenia on their analysis of these countries, but Balkan region is very specific in a way that it, the correlations of misinformation, disinformation comes from other countries like Serbia, Bosnia, Kosovo, Albania. So, essentially they're going to as well, incorporate these countries and the effect it has on them and vice versa. So that's maybe one of the aspects as well. So officially, perhaps some of the countries are not covered, but still we're looking kind of still out of the EU border into the closest realm. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Anya, to share this information with us. We are a bit late, but I think it was a very rich discussion, and it was worth to go a little bit over the foreseen time. We could stay here probably for several hours to talk about about this information. It's a challenging problem. But there is a lot that has been done and a lot to do. Let me conclude by saying that the code and ENMO are not two initiatives. These two initiatives are also interlinked to each other. You have heard from Paula and also from the other speakers that they are doing activities to monitor the code, and in fact, EDMO is sitting also in the task force of the Code of Practice of Disinformation, in particular regarding issues related to the monitoring of the code. So I will conclude this session. Thanks to the more than 200 people that were connected. Thanks to the speaker, a special thanks to Clem, because he had to put the alarm clock very early. And thanks also to the local team here, to Alex and Stella that helped me in running this session. Thank you very much for joining us today. Bye.